Welcome to Wonderful Stories, a place where imagination comes alive. So let's begin.
Part 1, The Man the World Owned. The world loved Adrian Vale in a way that didn't feel like love. It felt like possession. His face was on billboards in cities he'd never visited. His voice echoed in languages he didn't speak. Strangers cried over characters he pretended to be, while the real him existed only in airport lounges and dim hotel rooms where the curtains never fully opened. Tonight, thousands of people had screamed his name. Now he sat alone in the backseat of a rental car, parked 3 streets away from his own movie premiere after party, breathing like the air had turned too thin. Inhale, exhale, don't pass out, not again. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked unreal. Styled hair, perfect skin, lips still tinted from makeup. A face the world would call beautiful. A face he didn't recognize. His phone buzzed non-stop in the seat beside him. Manager, director, publicist, Marcus. He turned it off. That was the first rebellion. The second was driving. No plan, no security team, no assistant lecturing him about contracts. Just him, a cap pulled low, and the quiet hum of an engine heading away from flashing lights. The city skyline shrank behind him. The roads widened. Buildings turned into trees. By the time the ocean came into view, dark and endless under the moon, Adrian realized his hands had stopped shaking. Then the car died. A choking sound, a sputter. Smoke curled from the hood as the vehicle rolled to an embarrassing, helpless stop on the side of a coastal road that looked like it belonged in a painting. Adrian laughed. Of course the one time he ran from everything, the universe said, walk. He stepped out, the wind immediately tugging at his clothes, salty and sharp. Waves crashed below the cliffs, loud but steady. Real. He kicked the tire. Great. Perfect. Amazing. If swearing at it worked, my old heater would have lived forever. Adrian froze. A man stood a short distance away, halfway up a dirt path leading toward a small house on the hill. He held a rag in one hand, streaked with paint, blue, yellow, white. Like he'd wiped his hands mid-thought. His sweater sleeves were pushed up, revealing forearms dusted with color. Wind had completely ruined his hair, but he didn't seem to care. He looked soft, not weak, just unarmored. Car trouble? The stranger asked, voice easy, like they were neighbors discussing weather. Adrian instinctively lowered his head. Sunglasses, cap, hide. Yeah, he muttered. The man walked closer, peering at the hood. You're lucky. This road is mostly dramatic scenery and zero signal. He smiled, warm, crooked. I live up there. I've got tools. Can't promise miracles, but I can promise effort. Adrian blinked. No recognition, no double take, no widening eyes. You don't know me, Adrian almost asked, but swallowed it. Instead he said, I'd appreciate that. Elias, the man said, offering his paint-smudged hand. Adrian hesitated, then shook it. Adrian. The name felt strangely dangerous and safe at the same time. Elias's house smelled like coffee, salt air, and oil paint. Canvases leaned against walls, covered tables, even rested on the floor like they'd grown there naturally. None were flashy, no dramatic splashes or ego-driven statements. They were quiet, sunlight through thin curtains, an empty chair beside a window, 2 hands almost touching but not quite, loneliness painted in gentle colors. Adrian stood in the middle of the room, staring. Sorry about the mess, Elias said, already grabbing tools. Inspiration doesn't believe in cleaning schedules. They're beautiful, Adrian said before he could stop himself. Elias paused. You mean that? Yes. The word came out raw, honest, untouched by performance. Elias smiled like that answer mattered more than it should. Good, he said softly. That's the only kind of compliment worth hearing. And in that moment, surrounded by unfinished art, ocean wind sneaking through open windows, and a stranger who looked at him like he was just another tired man with car problems, Adrian felt something loosen inside his chest. Not love, not fate, just the terrifying, fragile beginning of being seen. Part 2, A Face Without a Mask. Adrian woke up on a couch that wasn't his, under a blanket that smelled like detergent and sea air, to the sound of something unfamiliar. Silence. Not city silence, the fake kind layered with distant traffic and humming buildings. Real silence, broken only by waves in the distance and the faint clink of ceramic from another room. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was. Then he turned his head and saw a canvas propped against the wall opposite him. Half finished, a window painted in soft gray light, curtains lifting like someone had just walked past. Memory came back in pieces. Car, smoke, cliffside road, Elias, right. He sat up slowly, body sore in a way that came from weeks of tension finally loosening. His phone was still off in his jacket pocket. No notifications, no demands, no, "Where are you?" text screaming at him. The quiet felt illegal. "You're alive," Elias said from the doorway, holding 2 mugs. His hair was messier than yesterday, like sleep had argued with it and won. "Good. I was about to check for a pulse." Adrian huffed a laugh. "Sorry to disappoint. I made coffee. Or tea. I didn't know which type of tired you are." "Coffee," Adrian said. Elias handed him a mug and sat on the arm of a chair, not crowding him. "Car's not dead, just dramatic. I'll need a part from town, though. Place opens in an hour." Adrian nodded, staring into the steam curling from his cup. Elias tilted his head. "You look like someone who doesn't usually wake up in strange houses." "That obvious? You check the exits with your eyes before taking a sip," Elias said lightly. Adrian paused, then smiled. "Small occupational hazard." Elias took that in. "So, marketing, right?" There it was. The lie waited on his tongue like something bitter. "Yeah," Adrian said. "Corporate." Elias made a sympathetic noise. "Explains the soul exhaustion." Adrian snorted into his coffee, nearly choking. "Is it that bad? You have, I answer emails at 2 a.m. and forgot what joy tastes like, energy." That's uncomfortably accurate. It was terrifying how easy this was. No careful phrasing, no monitoring facial expressions, no maintaining the version of himself the world had purchased. Elias talked while making toast, about how tourists only came in summer, how winter made the ocean look like steel, how he once tried to paint seagulls and they looked like aggressive potatoes with wings. Adrian laughed, real laughter, the kind that made his shoulders shake. Elias noticed. His voice softened. "You should do that more." "What, that?" He gestured. "Sound like a person instead of a press interview." Adrian's smile faded, not from offense, from being seen too clearly. Elias didn't push. He just changed the subject, like he'd gently knocked on a door and decided not to force it open. After breakfast, Adrian wandered the house while Elias took a call outside about the car part. Every canvas felt like a whisper. Not loud statements, feelings caught mid-breath. Then he saw it, a sketch on a side table. It was unfinished, just pencil lines, but it was him. From last night, sitting on the couch, head tilted back, eyes closed like he'd finally let gravity win. Adrian's chest tightened. "You drew this, when?" Elias stepped back inside, following his gaze. He looked embarrassed. "Oh, that, sorry, I draw when I think. It helps me process people." "Process me?" Elias met his eyes, steady. "You look like someone who's been holding the sky up alone." Adrian couldn't speak. No one had ever described him without mentioning fame, talent, beauty, success. "Just wait. Is it weird?" Elias asked quietly. "I can throw it away." "No," Adrian said too fast. "Don't." Their eyes held. Something shifted. Not fireworks, not cinematic. Music swelling. Just a thread pulling gently tight between two people who both recognized loneliness when they saw it. Elias cleared his throat first. "I'll head to town for the part. You can stay here. There's food. And, don't judge my music taste if the radio turns on by accident." "You helped a stranger," Adrian said. "I think I can forgive questionable playlists." Elias grinned. "Bold of you to assume it's questionable." He left, and Adrian stood in the middle of a quiet house filled with paintings, holding a mug that had gone cold, realizing something dangerous. For the first time in years, no one here wanted anything from him, and that made him want to stay. Part 3, The Portrait. Elias came back with the car part, a paper bag of groceries, and wind-reddened cheeks. Adrian noticed that first. Not the bag, not the tools, the way Elias looked alive in the cold air, like he belonged to this place in a way Adrian had never belonged anywhere. "Good news," Elias said, setting everything down. "Your car lives. Bad news, it complains a lot. Kind of like me before coffee." Adrian smiled. "I'm grateful to both of you." They walked down to the roadside together. The sky was pale, the kind of soft gray that made the ocean look endless and thoughtful. Elias worked under the hood, explaining things Adrian didn't understand but nodded at anyway, mostly just watching the quiet focus on his face. "Do you ever sit still?" Adrian asked. "Only when painting. Or sleeping. Sometimes I forget to do the second." Adrian leaned against the car. "Why here? It's isolated." Elias shrugged. "I paint people, or feelings. Hard to hear those in cities. Too loud, too many expectations." That word hit Adrian like a stone dropped in water. Expectations. He changed the subject. "So you've always painted?" Since I was a kid. Elias wiped his hands on a rag. It's the only time my head shuts up. Adrian understood that more than he wanted to. The car started again with a rough but determined sound. Elias stepped back, triumphant. See, dramatic, but loyal. Adrian didn't get in. Instead he said, "Can I stay a little longer?" Elias blinked. "You don't have to rush. Marketing won't collapse without you for a day." Adrian huffed a quiet laugh. If only that were true. They went back up to the house. That's when Elias did something unexpected. "Sit," he said, pointing toward the chair near the window where afternoon light spilled across the floor. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Are you about to interrogate me?" "Worse," Elias said, already grabbing a canvas. "I'm going to paint you." Adrian froze. "No," he said automatically. Elias paused, brush hovering. "Okay, that was fast." "I don't." Adrian struggled. "I don't like photos." "This isn't a photo. It's worse." Elias studied him carefully. "You think I'm trying to capture how you look?" "A beat." "I'm not." Adrian's throat tightened. "I want to paint how you exist when you forget to hold yourself together," Elias said gently. The quiet version. That was more terrifying than any camera. But Adrian didn't move from the chair. Elias began. The room filled with the soft scratch of bristles and the distant sound of waves. No music, no conversation, just air and light and the strange intimacy of being watched without being judged. Adrian didn't pose. He didn't know how to. So he just sat. His shoulders slowly dropped. His breathing deepened. His gaze drifted toward the window where the sky met the sea in a soft blur. For once, no one was asking him to be more. After a long time, Elias stepped back. "Okay," he said quietly. Adrian stood, hesitant, like approaching something fragile. He looked. The painting wasn't dramatic. No heroic lighting. No glamour. It was him in soft morning gray tones, sunlight touching one side of his face. His expression wasn't sad, just tired, honest, human, like someone who had been strong for too long. "That's not me," Adrian whispered. Elias didn't argue. "It is. It's just the version you don't let exist." Something inside Adrian cracked. His eyes burned, and he hated how much that scared him. "You don't know me. I know what it looks like when someone is carrying more than one person should," Elias said quietly. "I paint it all the time." Silence settled, heavy but not uncomfortable. Adrian realized he wanted this moment to stretch forever. This house, this light, this man who looked at him like he was something to understand, not consume. That was the exact moment the outside world came crashing back. A car engine echoed from the road below. Low, expensive, familiar. Adrian's blood went cold. Elias noticed the shift instantly. "You okay?" Adrian didn't answer, because he already knew who it was. And the life he ran from had just found him. Part 4. The past walks in. The car door slammed shut with the kind of sharp, confident sound that didn't belong in quiet places. Adrian didn't need to look out the window to know. His body already remembered. Tension coiled tight in his spine. His chest felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped the air from inside him. Elias moved toward the window, curious. "Friend of yours?" "No," Adrian said too fast. Footsteps on gravel, measured, unhurried, like the person walking up the hill had never once in his life been told no. A knock came at the door, not loud, not polite. Just certain. Elias glanced at Adrian, who had gone pale. "Do you want me to?" The door opened before he finished. Marcus Hale stepped inside like the house belonged to him. Tailored coat, sunglasses still on, perfect hair that somehow hadn't moved in the wind. He looked like a magazine cover dropped into a watercolor painting. And he smiled. That was the worst part. "Adrian," Marcus said warmly, like they'd just bumped into each other at a cafe instead of after months of silence. "There you are." Elias looked between them. "You know each other." Marcus pulled off his sunglasses, eyes sharp as glass. "Oh, we know each other very well." Adrian couldn't breathe. Memories hit in flashes. Film sets, late-night rehearsals, hands tangled in sheets, whispered promises in hotel rooms with curtains drawn tight. And press conferences where Marcus laughed and said, "I'm single. Always too busy for relationships." Adrian had stood 2 feet away when he said it. "Invisible. I've been looking everywhere," Marcus continued, gaze sweeping the house. "Management's losing their minds. You can't just disappear before a press tour." Elias went still. "Press tour?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "How did you find me?" Marcus smirked. "You think you can outrun an industry that tracks private jets? You used your card at a gas station an hour from here." "Of course." Elias looked at Adrian again, really looked this time. "The pieces rearranging. You're not in marketing," he said quietly. The lie collapsed between them. Adrian opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice like they were sharing a joke. You always do this when things get intense. Run somewhere quiet. Pretend you're not who you are. His eyes flicked to Elias. And pick up strays. Elias stiffened. Don't, Adrian said, voice low and warning. Marcus raised his hands innocently. What? I'm just stating facts. He turned to Elias with a charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm Marcus. We starred together in Falling Ashes. Biggest film of the year. Ring a bell. Elias's face drained of color. Understanding landed hard. You're Adrian Vale, he said, barely audible. There it was. The moment Adrian had been dreading since stepping into this house. Recognition. Distance. The invisible wall slamming into place. I was going to tell you, Adrian said, hating how weak it sounded. When? Elias asked, not angry. Worse. Hurt. After you left. Marcus watched like this was entertainment. You signed contracts, Marcus cut in. You don't get to vanish because you're tired of being adored. People depend on you. I was suffocating, Adrian snapped. And now? Marcus asked coolly. You hiding in a painter's cottage going to fix that? Silence. Because Adrian didn't know the answer. Elias stepped back, arms folding around himself like he needed something to hold him together. I didn't even know your real life. That was the point, Adrian said, voice breaking. You saw me, not the circus. You didn't trust me enough to let me choose, Elias replied. That hit deeper than anything Marcus had said. Marcus checked his watch. Cars waiting. We leave now. Adrian didn't move. Elias looked at him one last time, eyes soft, wounded, but still unbearably kind. You should go, he said quietly. Not angry, not dramatic, just a man who understood that loving someone famous meant sharing them with a world that never gave them back. Adrian's chest felt like it was caving in. But he followed Marcus out the door. Because sometimes leaving feels like the only way to protect the one person who made you want to stay. Part 5. The truth breaks things. The house felt bigger after Adrian left. Not physically, emotionally. Like something warm had been removed and the air hadn't figured out how to fill the space again. Elias stood by the window long after the car disappeared down the coastal road. The ocean looked the same. The waves didn't care. The wind still pushed at the grass. But the quiet had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was empty. He told himself it made sense. Of course Adrian had a life beyond this hill, beyond paint and coffee and half-finished canvases. People didn't just wander in from nowhere with eyes that tired and hands that careful. Still, the lie echoed. Marketing. Elias laughed once under his breath. It sounded thin. By evening, the town knew. The local cafe had the news playing above the counter. Global superstar Adrian Vale resurfaces after sudden disappearance. Sources say stress-related. Upcoming film promotions expected to resume. Elias froze mid-step. There he was. Perfect lighting. Perfect smile. Standing beside Marcus Hale, answering questions like nothing inside him had ever cracked. Elias watched Adrian nod, laugh softly, thank fans for their concern. He looked exactly like the man in movie posters. Not the one who sat in his chair at dawn with shadows under his eyes. Elias turned the TV off. Too loud, too bright, too unreal. Back home, he walked past the canvas from yesterday, the portrait. Adrian in gray light, honest, unarmored. Elias stared at it for a long time. You should have told me, he murmured to the empty room. But the worst part wasn't the fame. It was understanding why Adrian hid it. Fame wasn't a job, it was a cage built from admiration. That didn't make the lie hurt less. He picked up a brush, then set it down again. His hands felt heavy. For the first time in months, painting didn't come. Across the city, Adrian stood under stage lights so bright he couldn't see past the first row. Questions flew at him. Where did you go? Was it burnout? Are you and Marcus dating again? He answered with the same polished calm he'd perfected over years. I'm doing better. I needed rest. We're just co-stars. Each word felt like sand in his mouth. After the event, he locked himself in his hotel bathroom and slid down the door until he was sitting on cold marble tiles. His reflection stared back from the mirror opposite him. Styled, composed, hollow. His mind replayed Elias's voice. You didn't trust me enough to let me choose. That was the truth he couldn't dodge. He hadn't lied to manipulate. He'd lied because he wanted one place untouched by the machine that chewed through everything he loved. But love built on missing pieces still collapses. He covered his face with his hands. For the first time in years, the tears came without a scene to justify them. Days passed. Interviews. Photoshoots, rehearsals. Marcus hovered constantly, slipping into Adrian's space like muscle memory. A hand on his back. A joke whispered too close. A public image that suggested comfort, history, maybe reconciliation. Adrian endured it, because fighting publicly meant headlines. Speculation. Exposure. And he couldn't drag Elias into that. Not when he'd already hurt him. One night, alone in his apartment, Adrian opened his phone gallery. He hadn't taken pictures at Elias's house. He hadn't wanted proof, but his mind supplied everything. The sound of waves through open windows. Paint on Elias's cheek. The way he said you should do that more after Adrian laughed. Adrian pressed his thumb against the screen like he could reach through memory. I'm sorry, he whispered to no one. Back on the coast, Elias finally picked up his brush again. Not to finish the portrait. To start another. This one darker. The same chair by the window. But empty. Light still poured in, but no one sat there to receive it. And that hurt more than he expected. Part 6. Leaving doesn't mean letting go. Adrian learned how to function while hollow. It was a skill the industry rewarded. Smile on cue. Tilt your head when listening. Laugh half a second after the interviewer finishes speaking. He did it all perfectly. But something had changed. Before, the performance had been survival. Now it felt like betrayal. Because now he knew what it felt like to exist without acting. And once you taste air, you notice the cage. Marcus noticed too. You're distant, Marcus said one evening in the backseat of a car taking them to another event. City lights slid across the window like restless ghosts. I'm tired, Adrian replied. You're always tired. That's not new. Marcus studied him. This is different. Adrian said nothing. Marcus exhaled sharply. You think that painter understands you better than I do. I was there when you had panic attacks between takes. When you couldn't sleep unless the TV was on. You were there, Adrian said quietly. But you never stood next to me. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not fair. You asked me to hide, Adrian said, finally looking at him. You said it would ruin your brand. Marcus looked away first. Silence filled the car, thick and old. Meanwhile, Elias stopped watching the news. Not out of anger. Self-preservation. Every glimpse of Adrian in a tailored suit, standing under lights, felt like watching someone drown politely. Instead, Elias poured himself into work. He accepted a spot in a small city exhibition, his biggest opportunity yet. A gallery owner had seen his coastal pieces and called them intimate in a way that makes people uncomfortable in the best way. Elias almost said no. Then he thought of Adrian, staring at the first portrait like it had uncovered him. So he said yes. He painted constantly. Not grand scenes. Moments. A cup left half full. A jacket on the back of a chair. Light touching a place someone had just been. Absence became his theme. Weeks later, Adrian walked into his apartment after another premiere and didn't turn the lights on. The darkness felt honest. His phone buzzed on the counter. Notifications piled up. Interviews praised his chemistry with Marcus. Fans speculated about a reunion. He felt sick. He opened his messages instead. Scrolled past work threads. Then stopped. A news alert from an art magazine. Rising painter Elias Rowan explores emotional absence in upcoming exhibit. Adrian's heart stuttered. He opened the article. There was a photo of Elias in his studio, sleeves rolled up, paint on his hands, looking awkward in front of the camera. The caption read, Rowan's newest collection captures the feeling of someone having just left a room, warmth lingering, presence gone. Adrian sat down hard on the couch. He didn't know whether to smile or break. He read the exhibit date. 3 weeks. Across the country. His schedule that night. A televised award show. Live. Millions watching. He locked his phone and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, a thought formed that scared him more than scandal. What if I don't go where I'm expected? On the coast, Elias finished one last painting before packing for the city. It showed the same window. Same light, but this time, a figure stood just outside the frame, only a shoulder visible, like someone hesitating before stepping in. Elias stared at it for a long time. Don't be stupid, he muttered to himself. But hope had already slipped back in. Quiet, stubborn, like light that kept returning no matter how many times the sun set. Part 7. The Man in the Gallery. The gallery smelled like fresh paint, polished floors, and nerves. Elias stood near the back wall, pretending to study the exhibit layout for the 10th time while actually trying not to throw up. He hated openings. Too many eyes. Too many opinions. Too much talking about feelings instead of just letting people feel them. You good? The gallery owner whispered. Define good, Elias muttered. People filtered in, quiet couples, art students, older collectors who tilted their heads thoughtfully at everything. Soft conversation filled the room like distant rain. Then Elias saw it, someone standing in front of that painting. The portrait, Adrian in morning light, not labeled with his name. Just the title, The Man Who Wanted to Be Seen. The stranger wore a dark coat and a cap pulled low. Shoulders tense, hands in pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. Elias's heart started pounding before his brain caught up. No, it couldn't be. The man stepped closer to the canvas. And Elias saw his reflection in the glass frame, familiar eyes, tired in a way cameras never caught. Adrian. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, just unguarded. Elias didn't move. Adrian reached out like he wanted to touch the painting, then stopped himself, fingers curling back. His throat worked like he was trying to swallow something too big. You kept it, he said softly, voice rough. Elias walked forward slowly. I almost didn't. Adrian turned. The noise of the gallery faded into nothing. Up close, Elias could see the strain in his face, not makeup perfect, not screen ready. Real, human, like the version from the coast had survived somewhere under the spotlight. You came, Elias said. Adrian gave a shaky half-smile. I almost didn't. They stood there, a careful distance apart. Like one wrong move might break something fragile between them. I saw the article, Adrian said. About your theme. Elias's lips pressed together. Yeah, absence. A small nod. Adrian looked back at the painting. I didn't want to leave. I know, Elias said. That surprised both of them. Adrian exhaled like a weight shifted slightly. But wanting and choosing aren't always the same. Elias studied him. Did you choose to be here tonight? Yes. Not hesitation, not excuse, just yes. That mattered more than Elias wanted it to. Before he could answer, another voice cut in. Well, this is poetic. Marcus. Of course. Perfect coat, perfect timing, perfect ability to ruin oxygen. He stepped beside Adrian, gaze flicking to the painting, then to Elias. So you're the muse. I'm a person, Elias said evenly. Marcus smiled thinly. For now. Adrian stiffened. Why are you here? Because when you skipped the award show, the internet exploded. I figured you'd run somewhere sentimental. Elias blinked. You skipped. I chose, Adrian said, eyes still on Marcus. Marcus sighed. You think this ends well? The industry doesn't like being ignored. I don't care, Adrian replied quietly. That landed. Marcus studied him, searching for hesitation. There wasn't any. You'll regret this, Marcus said. Adrian shook his head. No, I regret hiding. I regret silence. I don't regret this. He turned to Elias fully now. I was wrong, he said. I thought protecting you meant leaving you out. But that was just fear dressed up as sacrifice. Elias's chest hurt. No more lies. None, Adrian said. Even when it's messy. Even when it costs me. The room felt too small for the moment stretching between them. Elias glanced at the painting. The man in that portrait, he said softly, looked like he was waiting for permission to exist. Adrian stepped closer. I'm tired of waiting. So Elias closed the distance. Their kiss wasn't dramatic. No audience. Applause. Just warm, certain, real. And for the first time, Adrian wasn't being watched. He was being chosen. Part 8. The cost of choosing. The kiss in the gallery had been quiet. The consequences were not. By morning, Adrian's name was everywhere again. Trending tags, speculative headlines, zoomed-in photos of him standing close to a man whose face the internet desperately tried to identify. Words like scandal and career suicide floated around as if love were a crime scene. Adrian sat at Elias's kitchen table, sunlight on the wood, phone face down between them. I should look, Elias said carefully. You shouldn't, Adrian replied. Elias studied him. Are you okay? Adrian thought about it. The noise outside their small bubble was enormous. His team had left 12 missed calls. His agent had texted in all caps. A studio executive had sent a passive-aggressive, "We need to talk." And yet, I'm scared, Adrian admitted. But not the way I used to be. Elias reached across the table, thumb brushing Adrian's wrist. What's different? Before, I was scared of losing everything. He met Elias's eyes. Now I know what everything actually is. That afternoon, Adrian took the calls. He listened to warnings about markets, image value, audience demographics. He was told to issue a neutral statement. 2. Clarify. 2. Control the narrative. I'm not a narrative, Adrian said calmly. I'm a person. Silence. You're making this harder than it needs to be, his manager said. No, Adrian replied. I've been making it easier for everyone else. He didn't storm out of the industry. He didn't burn bridges. He just stopped folding himself smaller. Some projects quietly disappeared from his calendar. A blockbuster sequel went in another direction. A luxury brand paused negotiations. Then other calls came. An indie director who'd always admired his early theater work. A screenwriter who wanted him for a story about grief and fathers. A stage production that paid a fraction of his usual fee. They wanted him, not the myth. It was terrifying. It was freeing. That night, Elias found him sitting on the porch steps, staring at the ocean. Regretting it, Elias asked softly. Adrian shook his head. I thought choosing love meant losing the rest of my life. Elias sat beside him. Turns out, Adrian said, watching waves break in silver lines, it just means losing the parts that were never really mine. And for the first time, the future felt uncertain in a way that didn't feel like falling, but like stepping into open space on purpose. Part 9. Learning to stay. Love, Elias discovered, wasn't dramatic once you got past the crisis. It was logistical. Adrian had nightmares sometimes, not screaming ones, the quiet kind, where he woke already sitting up, breath shallow, eyes searching for exits. The first time it happened, Elias reached for him instinctively. Adrian flinched. They both froze. I'm sorry, Adrian said immediately, voice hoarse. Don't apologize for surviving things, Elias replied gently. They learned each other slowly. Adrian needed warning before crowded places. Elias needed silence after long social days. Adrian filled space when anxious, Elias withdrew when overwhelmed. Once, they argued about dishes. It started because Adrian washed them immediately after dinner while Elias preferred to leave them to soak, which Adrian insisted was an emotional excuse, not a cleaning strategy. You're stress scrubbing, Elias said. You're procrastinating, Adrian shot back. They ended up on opposite sides of the kitchen, both stubborn. Then Elias muttered, I can't believe our first fight is about a plate. Adrian burst out laughing. The tension cracked like thin ice. They slid to the floor, shoulders touching, laughter dissolving into quiet. I don't know how to do this, Adrian admitted. Me neither, Elias said. Good thing we're both beginners. Trust didn't come from grand declarations. It came from small, repeated proof. Adrian answering honestly when Elias asked, how are you really? Elias saying, I need a minute, instead of disappearing emotionally. Sometimes Adrian still expected to be left. Sometimes Elias still feared being overshadowed. So they said it out loud. I'm still here, Elias would murmur. I'm not going anywhere, Adrian would answer. And slowly, staying stopped feeling like a promise they had to convince themselves of, and started feeling like a fact. Part 10. The Life They Paint. A year later, the house felt lived in. Not staged, not temporary. There were 2 coats by the door, 3 mismatched mugs in constant rotation, and a drawer Adrian claimed was organized, that Elias refused to open on principle. Adrian's career had shifted into something quieter, stranger, more personal. He performed in a stage play in a theater so small he could see individual audience members breathing. After opening night, he came home glowing in a way no red carpet had ever managed. They listened, he told Elias, still half in costume. Like really listened. Good, Elias said, kissing paint off his knuckles. You deserve rooms that hear you. Elias's art changed too. The Absence series ended. New canvases filled the studio, 2 shadows on a wall, hands brushing while reaching for the same cup, a figure reading by a window while another painted nearby. Presence replaced longing. One afternoon, Adrian sat by the familiar window, glasses low on his nose, script in hand. His hair was unstyled, soft with sea air. Elias painted him again, not the tired man from before. Not the broken one, just Adrian, breathing, existing, staying. You're doing that face, Adrian said without looking up. What face? The one where you pretend you're not emotional about something. Elias smiled. Occupational hazard. Adrian glanced over. What's the title? Elias looked at the canvas, at light touching a man who no longer looked like he might vanish. He said softly, the man who stayed. Adrian's expression shifted, quiet, full. Outside, the ocean kept moving, endless and steady. Inside, nothing felt temporary anymore. And for once, love wasn't a dramatic escape. It was just the life they woke up in every day, chosen, ordinary, and entirely theirs. Epilogue. Light that stays. Some loves begin like fireworks. Theirs began like morning, quiet, gradual, certain. Years later, people still recognized Adrian sometimes, at train stations, in bookstores, once while he was aggressively comparing tomatoes at a market like the fate of the world depended on it. Fame never fully leaves. It just softens around the edges. What changed was this: it no longer owned him. He chose projects the way Elias chose colors, by feeling, not pressure. Some films were small and strange and beautiful. Some plays closed early. Some performances went unnoticed by the world, but never by the people in the room. And that was enough. Elias's studio grew brighter over time. Not because the windows changed, but because his paintings did. The heavy loneliness that once lived in his work slowly gave way to warmth. Not dramatic happiness, just presence. 2 chairs instead of 1. A jacket thrown over another. Light falling across shared space. Collectors called it his second phase. Elias just called it honest. They never moved away from the coast. The world was loud. The ocean was not. Mornings became their favorite ritual. Adrian made coffee like it was a delicate scientific process. Elias pretended not to judge but absolutely judged. Too much water, he'd mutter. You have no proof, Adrian would reply. Some days Adrian read scripts by the window while Elias painted. Some days Elias worked while Adrian rested with his head in Elias's lap, the rise and fall of breathing sinking without effort. They still had hard days. Anxiety didn't vanish because love arrived. Old fears sometimes knocked like distant thunder. But now, no one faced the storm alone. One evening, during a small gallery talk, someone asked Elias the question he'd been asked 100 times. Who is the man that appears in so many of your paintings? Elias glanced across the room. Adrian stood near the back, sleeves rolled up, listening like any other person, not the star, not the headline. Just him. Elias smiled softly. He's someone who taught me that being seen is braver than being admired. Adrian met his eyes. That quiet, steady understanding passed between them, the kind built from staying, not sparks. Later, walking home under a sky turning gold, Adrian slipped his hand into Elias's. No cameras, no performance, just the sound of waves and footsteps on the path. Do you ever miss it? Elias asked. The old scale of your life. Adrian thought about red carpets, crowds, the dizzy height of being wanted by everyone. Then he looked at the small house waiting at the top of the hill, light already glowing in the windows. I don't miss being everyone's, he said. He squeezed Elias's hand gently. I like being yours. And this time, love didn't feel like escape. It felt like home. If you like the story, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications for more amazing stories.